On today's show, the Rockets get their 5th straight win against the Memphis Grizzlies. Amen Thompson absolutely feasting off the gravity created by Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun. We're going to break it all down for you right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's 5 straight wins and now a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Fridays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. On today's show, I'm going to be breaking down the Rockets' 124-109 win against the Memphis Grizzlies, a game in which Kevin Durant struggled offensively, could not put the ball in the basket, just 5 of 18 shooting, but his gravity, the threat of Kevin Durant, still doing so much for this Rockets team and unlocking so much for this Rockets offense. Amen Thompson, one of the big beneficiaries of that gravity. Amen was feasting in this game off the attention directed towards primarily Kevin Durant, but also somewhat Alperen Sengun. Talk about Amen Thompson's big night, as well as Josh Okogie just being the absolute Triple J stopper in this game. Sharpshooter Tari Eason, some big Clint Capela minutes off of the bench, and so much more to get to from this game. First, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. 124-109 win for the Rockets against the Grizzlies. That's 5 straight wins. They are now sitting at 5-2 on the season. They are technically top 3 in the Western Conference. OKC 1, Lakers 2, and then Rockets. It's a 3-way tie, I guess. Rockets, Nuggets, Spurs are all 5-2, but they've got the ESPN has the Rockets at the top, so I'm going to say they're the 3rd seed in the West. Look, this game, it's funny watching teams try to figure out how to stop the Rockets offensively. It is, because it really is this kind of like ultimate pick your poison, who are you going to deal with kind of thing, because you realistically, like the Rockets literally have 2 players that you cannot double team. You cannot double team Kevin Durant. You cannot double team Alperen Sengun. They are both too good and too skilled at breaking down a defense and either finding their own opportunities to score the ball or finding opportunities for their teammates. And ultimately, the way in which teams have elected to basically like face guard Kevin Durant 35 feet away from the basket, sending double teams to him, 35 feet away from the hoop, it's unlocking some very unique possibilities for this Rockets offense. Look, this was not a great Kevin Durant scoring game. It wasn't. It just flat out wasn't. 11 points on 5 of 18 shooting. That's an awful Kevin Durant scoring night, right? And he had opportunities. He had chances to score the ball and couldn't, unfortunately, ever really get into a rhythm, primarily because he was being doubled literally all night. And there's not very many, like, when the Rockets have their starters out there, cool, like, and teams are just electing to double team KD. All right, fine. Like, he's willing to make the sacrifice play. He's willing to be the decoy and let other guys go off, right? And I'm sure KD's ecstatic about not having to drop 25, 30, 35 a night for his team to be able to win in blowout fashion, right? This is a new kind of experience for KD. So, but at the same time, the unfortunate downside to that and being double teamed all night is it is really hard to catch a rhythm, right? It's really hard to get in any kind of rhythm. And so you do effectively remove KD from the equation. Now, KD's still KD. He's still going to have games where even if you're double teaming him, he's still going to pop off for 25, 30 plus. This just wasn't one of those nights, but it didn't really matter because the Rockets have so many weapons that can play off of KD. And I think this is the really important takeaway from this game is even when Kevin Durant is not scoring the ball at a crazy high level or crazy efficiently or whatever you want to call it, he still provides so much just by his mere presence on the basketball court. And you saw that play out over the course of this entire game against the Grizzlies. Their defense had so much respect for KD that they refused to ever let him touch the ball, basically. As soon as KD touched the ball, whether it was out on the perimeter. I mean, again, there were times where they were sending a second defender out to him well beyond the three-point line just to get the ball out of his hands. And then, when he tried to catch the ball on like a post-up or, a DHO, whatever, the Grizzlies were so quick to try and double him every single time. And Kevin's credit, right? There were a couple moments like early in the game where, and I think this is going to be a game by game thing, right? Where he has to kind of gauge how the defense is going to play him, right? In that given game, right? Are they going to elect to guard him in single coverage? Are they going to send double teams, right? Is it going to be a quick double? Is it going to be a late trap? Like, what are they trying to do? Where is the double team coming from, right? Is help coming from the baseline? Are they sending a defender from a complete opposite side of the court and they're just completely tilting the defense over? It's going to be different every single game. And it's going to take a beat every single game for KD to figure out and understand, okay, this is how they're playing me this game. But once he figured it out, once he understood that the Grizzlies were just going to double team him relentlessly and that he was never really going to get a chance to catch a rhythm or ISO or get to his usual, go-to spots, you could see the switch kind of flip in KD's brain where there were times where the moment he touched the ball, he was ready to release it. He was looking for the next pass rather than kind of earlier in the game. There were some moments where he caught the ball, started like thinking, okay, here's the move I want to make, or, I'm going to drive, or I'm going to, look to face up here. He later in the game, after he realized the double teams were coming relentlessly, he was just looking to get rid of the ball. And that's the kind of unselfish player KD can be. And because of that gravity, because of those double teams that the Grizzlies kept committing to KD, a lot of them resulted in like a KD release to Sengun, and then Sengun finding the open man, which a lot of times in this game was Amen Thompson, who was the recipient of a lot of these double teams, right? Led the team in scoring with 28 points. And that's the benefit of having somebody with that much gravity. Because look, KD is still supposed to be this team's, leading scorer, number one option, what have you, but he doesn't, I guess, need to be when teams are going to play him this aggressively. And the Rockets have so many other talented players who can absolutely step up and deliver when he's being, I don't want to call it shut down, but just denied from like participating in the game. Basically, that was the sacrifice the Grizzlies made. They were like, we're going to constantly send two to the ball for KD, and we're willing to live with the results of whatever Sengun and Amen Thompson and Jabari Smith Jr. and everybody else are willing to do. And it completely torched them. And the Rockets have more than enough talent to be able to survive, and not only survive, but thrive and win games that way. And a clear distinction between this year's team and last year's team is Kevin Durant can go out there and put up 5 of 18 shooting and only score 11 points, but he created countless opportunities for his teammates on the floor to be able to be in advantageous positions to score the basketball. Unfortunately, for last year's team with Jalen Green as the leading scorer, Jalen Green has nowhere near the same amount of gravity that Kevin Durant does. And so on a night-to-night basis, if you swap out Jalen Green for KD and he's, putting up 5 of 18, 11 points, whatever, you're still getting that kind of woefully inefficient night, but you're not also getting the added benefit of the constant double teams, the being double teamed 30 feet away from the basket, the 4-on-3 opportunities offensively that are being capitalized on by Sengun, by Amen Thompson, by everybody else, by the entire supporting cast. And that's kind of a clear distinction here is KD can get away with it because the name Kevin Durant on the scouting report unlocks so much for every other guy on this roster. And KD still walked away with 5 dimes in this one too. Like he was willing to pass. He moved the basketball well. And when your best player is being that unselfish with the ball, is okay with being, I guess, taken out of the game and being that sacrifice so that other guys can lead the charge, it works out really well. And you have a very unselfish kind of team approach where everybody's willing to share the basketball, create for one another. Rockets, another game with 29 assists on their 48 made shots, moving the basketball incredibly well. All 5 starters in double figures. Great, solid win. And even though he didn't lead the team in scoring, Kevin Durant was certainly maybe the biggest offensive factor in this game based on how the Grizzlies were trying to defend things. Coming up, Want to talk about Amen Thompson's big night, the beneficiary of a lot of this attention that was being directed towards Kevin Durant, as well as Alperen Sengun's 2016 and 7 evening as well. Plus, we'll get into Josh Okogie's stellar defense, sharpshooting Tari Eason, and some big Clint Capela minutes. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save you hours every single week. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/lockedonnba and get 3 months for free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/lockedonnba. One more time, that's gusto.com/lockedonnba. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. This was a game, too, where before I get to specifically talking about Amen Thompson's performance in this one, right? The Rockets didn't get some of their usual. I guess they still. How do I want to describe this? I mean, the win conditions that we've talked about this Rockets kind of having baked in every single game, they didn't get to the free throw line a ton in this game. The Grizzlies did a decent job of not fouling, not putting the Rockets at the charity stripe. Alperen Sengun led the way. He had 10 free throw attempts, hit 8 of them. And he had more than half the team's attempts by himself. But Rockets as a team, just 15 of 18 shooting at the charity stripe. So the Grizzlies didn't really foul a ton, in part because they were just giving up so much at the rim and in the paint in general. But that was where the discrepancy was in this game, because they actually shot even from the three-point line. Both teams made 13 threes. Now, the Rockets did it on much better efficiency because they were 13 of 30, 43.3% shooting. Grizzlies were just 13 of 39, so 33.3% shooting from downtown. Grizzlies actually won the free throw battle. Grizzlies were 28 of 35 at the free throw line in this game. They were a plus 13 from the charity stripe. They shot a good percentage. They got to the free throw line a ton. And yet, Rockets still managed to win by 15. Oh, well, Jackson, how did they do that? Well, they just got way more attempts than the Grizzlies did. They took better care of the basketball than the Grizzlies did. Rockets forced a decent number of turnovers and scored off of those turnovers in this game. They forced 15 Grizzlies turnovers, scored 26 points off of those turnovers. And even though the Grizzlies were thriving in transition in this game, Grizzlies outscored the Rockets 29-18 in transition, which has been a sore spot for the Rockets. Giving up those transition opportunities didn't really matter because the Rockets also dominated them in the paint 60-40. And then just their overall scoring threshold, they just made more shots. They were just the better offensive team in this game. 48 made shots for the Rockets, 48 of 101, which they had 12 more attempts than the Grizzlies did, in just pure shot volume. Grizzlies only shot the ball 89 times. Rockets shot it 101 times. And Grizzlies only shot 38.2% from the floor, whereas the Rockets were shooting 47.5% from the floor. So just a much better offensive display from this Rockets team, even when their leading scorer and their most potent offensive weapon in Kevin Durant only shot 5 of 18 in this game. Even if KD has a regular Kevin Durant game, this would have been a blowout a lot sooner than it actually was. And they still managed to win by 15, which is pretty nuts when you think about it. Even Alperen Sengun had a so-so game. 6 of 14 shooting is like kind of a so-so game from an efficiency standpoint for LP. Even Amen Thompson, 13 of 26 is right on the money at 50% shooting. But usually Amen Thompson's numbers are a little bit more efficient than that. Even Tari Eason, who's been such a sharpshooter, had a kind of a dreadful game inside the arc, but he was 4 of 8 from beyond the arc. So you live with it, right? That's kind of how the Rockets won this game. Is they just made more shots than the Grizzlies. And credit to the Rockets defense, because their defense on the Grizzlies I thought was actually really impressive in this game. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a moment, especially just flat out limiting the Grizzlies starters, man. The Grizzlies starters didn't do anything in this game. The bench was better than the starters for the Grizzlies in this one. But I do want to talk about Amen Thompson for a moment here, who was the beneficiary of so much of this offensive attention, or I guess defensive attention being focused on Kevin Durant in this game. Amen Thompson with a ridiculous stat line, 28 points, 10 rebounds, 4 of them on the offensive glass, 7 dimes, 2 steals, 13 of 26 shooting, again, 1 of 3 from downtown, only made it to the free throw line once, knocked it down, played 39 minutes. This was, I mean, Amen Thompson now in 2 straight games has scored his second and third highest points ever in 2 straight games. And again, going back to a little bit of what we talked about in segment 1, right? If teams are content with just trying to double team one of Kevin Durant or Alperen Sengun, they're both too good and too skilled at breaking down a defense and figuring out where to get the ball to get it to the next man, to then be able to, to have a release valve like an Amen Thompson or like a Jabari Smith Jr., who it was, not quite the explosive 28-point performance night that Amen Thompson had, but Jabari was also a recipient of a lot of these release valve passes, right? 16 points on 6 of 8 shooting. Jabari was fantastic in this one as being that kind of play finisher within the Rockets offense. And for Amen Thompson, he continues to be so impressive playing off the ball, playing as a cutter, finding those little seams within the defense. There were so many great connections between him and Alperen Sengun in this game. Just where Alp, and because Alp didn't command quite the 35-foot double teams that KD was commanding, but the Grizzlies still sent 2 to the ball with Alp, and they still loaded up on him a lot in the paint. Like, the Rockets spacing is still not super fantastic at times, because on the scouting report, at least, the Rockets run a lot of players and a lot of lineups with quote unquote multiple non-shooters, right? When you see Amen Thompson, when you see Josh Okogie, when you see Alperen Sengun, despite the numbers that suggest these guys are shooting the ball better this season, right? A lot of teams so far have been game planning based on like the historical precedent of like, okay, Sengun is not a shooter. Amen is not a shooter. Okogie is not a shooter. Capela, not a shooter. Adams, not a shooter. Like, keep going down the line, right? The Rockets play a lot of lineups with 2 and 3 quote unquote non-shooters. And when they do that, you're seeing defenses completely ignore those guys on the perimeter and really load up in the paint. And so it hasn't been easy yet. And there's been a lot of moments where the spacing looks kind of mucky and gross. And, you're seeing, sometimes 3, 4, or even 5 bodies all collapse in the paint on one guy, whether it's KD or Sengun, what have you. But the Rockets are doing a good job of capitalizing on all that offensive attention. And Amen Thompson being one of those main recipients of all that attention. He is still scoring at an obscene amount of points per possession off of cuts. In this game in particular, 8 of his points, I believe, or I apologize. Hang on, I tally this up really quick. No, it is 8. I was right. 8 of his points were scored off cuts in this game. 1.375 points per possession off cuts. That's still just nuts that he's scoring so effectively off all that attention. And it's not just the cuts. Like, it's also him having the ball in his hands. And you're seeing Amen Thompson continue to gradually level up and make some really impressive passes and reads and kickouts. He's great in transition. And that's somewhere where, even though the Rockets were still outscored in transition, it felt like they did a much better job at times of kicking the ball ahead, of getting out and running and trying to find those easy opportunities in transition. There was one play I remember where Grizzlies had just made a shot, and Amen Thompson was like clapping for the ball at the baseline because the Rockets are trying to take the ball out of the net and run and get into their offense quickly. They're not trying to, be, lackadaisical about setting things up and slow paced and whatever. And Amen Thompson got the ball, ripped it, and ran and got up the court so quickly and was able to kick it out to the corner. And it might have been Tari, it might have been Reed Shepherd, can't remember who, but he kicked it out to the corner for a wide open 3. Hell, it might have been it might have been one of those third quarter Okogie threes. All I remember is he knocked it out to the corner, 3-point shooter, knocked it down. And that was like a quick trade, right? Grizzlies hit a quick 2. Rockets came back down, ripped it super quick, and knocked down a corner 3, which is where they've been on fire from. They're killing it from the corners in this season. And that's like, it's moments like that with Amen Thompson where he's able to see and understand how he can manipulate a defense, especially in transition. And just the unselfish nature of this Rockets team. So, sometimes a little too unselfish, right? There were some moments between, Sengun and Amen, some passing inside the paint, some back and forth moments where it's like, okay, guys, just one of you take the shot. Like, you don't have to keep trying to find the better pass or the unselfish play. Like, just go up with it and go up strong and finish. But you're bound to have some moments like that. And I think that unselfish nature is ultimately a better thing than it is a detriment for this team. And so when you have two different guys who on a night-to-night basis in Alperen Sengun and Amen Thompson consistently flirting with double-doubles. Alperen Sengun, obviously Amen Thompson said his stat line, 28, 10, and 7. Alperen Sengun, 20, 16, and 7, right? Both of these guys nightly flirting with triple doubles because of how connective they are offensively, how unselfish they are, and the ways in which they're both able to penetrate a defense and then kick the ball out and find their open guys is commendable. It really is. And it's really exciting stuff to watch. And they work so incredibly well in tandem with one another that even though they're both still kind of viewed as non-shooters by opposing defenses, which hopefully that starts to change a little bit with Alperen Sengun shooting well above 40% from three this season, that chemistry that they share is undeniable, and having Kevin Durant thrown in the mix to be able to unlock that even further and giving both of those guys some of the easiest opportunities of their career is what's elevated this Rockets offense to being number one in the entire association. Coming up, do you want to share final thoughts on this one? Alperen Sengun's big night, Tari Eason sharp shooting, Josh Okogie's defense on Jaren Jackson Jr. So much more to still get to from this one. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next point to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, you can head on over to FanDuel.com. Take a look at the odds on favorites to win the title this season. Rockets odds shifting up a little bit. Got the OKC Thunder still in the lead at plus 200. Cavs behind them at plus 650. Nuggets plus 700. Knicks plus 1200. Lakers plus 1400. Warriors, gross, plus 1600. And the Rockets creeping up the list, plus 1700 now for their title odds. So for all those numbers and more, head on over to FanDuel.com, where FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. I didn't even get to the insane Amen Thompson crossover and dunk on Cedric Coward. Maybe it wasn't quite like a poster because he got clean past Coward, but just an absolute filthy crossover to get right to the rim and finish. And that's the other thing, is that as Amen Thompson's starting to figure things out, right? He's not just going to be this off-ball cutting presence, but that he's a Swiss Army knife. He can do it all. And he's slowly starting to put it together where he can get the ball, and even whether not just in transition, but in the half court as well, get downhill, get to his spot, create for a teammate, or just finish with that insane touch that he's got around the basket. There's just moments where, he had that one in transition where he elevated on Santi Aldama, I believe it was, and took the contact and was still able to hang midair and finish it right at the rim. There were some really impressive moments from Amen Thompson in this game. Not to mention, and maybe my favorite one, honestly, outside of all the different crazy highlights, was when Alperen Sengun stole the ball in transition, tipped it away from, I think it was Triple J, and kicked it ahead to Amen Thompson, because Amen Thompson and KD were trailing the transition play, so they were still under the Grizzlies basket, and he pitched it ahead to Amen Thompson, and Amen Thompson could have just gone away, breakaway slam, whatever. He just did a little drop pass to KD, who was just standing right under the basket, so that KD could get himself a bucket, right? Super unselfish. Hey, let your star player see one go in the hoop. He's been getting double and triple teamed all night. Great little moment from Amen Thompson to, make sure that KD got one of his, and for Amen Thompson, he racks up another assist. So, doesn't look bad there either. Look, Alperen Sengun too in this game. I'm just going to spend a minute on him because it's just another nightly thing of Sengun being Sengun, right? 20 points, 16 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal, a block. Did have 6 turnovers. It definitely felt like there were a lot of moments where Grizzlies defense maybe got the better of him, or he started to make a move and, get poke checked or got, stripped from behind from a Grizzlies defender coming over and knocking the ball away. And that's bound to happen, right? There's going to be some high turnover games from both, Alperen Sengun and Kevin Durant as we navigate the season with how much attention both of those guys command on a nightly basis. But even outside of that, right, seeing how active Sengun was on the glass, especially a game where they were missing the rebounding impact of Steven Adams. Sengun's numbers this season haven't really popped in a rebounding standpoint just because they haven't needed to, because they've had so much help from Steven Adams on the glass and because he commands so much attention down low. But in this game, it was great to see Sengun active on the glass. And he actually wasn't the only one to make up for the Steven Adams, absence, right? Sengun had 16 rebounds. Amen Thompson had 10 boards. And Clint Capela off the Rockets bench, 10 rebounds. Talk about him in just a second. But just a strong night from Sengun. I do miss, the mid-range stuff is I want to see him go back to the floater that he had, because the little spinning push shot, his numbers are actually up around the rim, directly at the basket this season, but his mid-range numbers have just been kind of and there's moments where he settles for a midi or he spins into a midi, and I'm just just go the extra 3 feet and get all the way to the rim. You're big, you're strong, just finish past guys, man. But again, did a great job getting to the free throw line. That's where he scored 8 of his 20 points. So the shooting there continues to be impressive. 0 of 2 from 3 in this one, but you live with it. Still shooting well over 40% on the season. Josh Okogie set the tone early in this game with his defense on Jaren Jackson Jr. The first 3 or 4 possessions that went through Triple J, Okogie won 3 out of the 4 of them. He was batting 7,500 or whatever, defending Triple J. Early possession this game, he stole the ball from Triple J, and then in transition had this ridiculous, he was almost falling out of bounds and did a 360 kind of spinning behind the back pirouette to save himself from going out of bounds, and then was able to get all the way to the cup for 2. Those were his first 2 points of the game. And then he had another play moments later where he fronted Triple J on a switch, right? Where Ime Udoka's comfortable with, Okogie wasn't Triple J's primary defender, but on any action that involved Okogie and Triple J, the Rockets were we'll switch it. We don't care. And they threw Josh in front of Triple J, had him fronting him using that long wingspan. And there was a moment early, not long after that first steal, where Okogie was fronting Triple J. They tried to lob the pass in, and he knocked it right off Triple J's leg, and it went out of bounds. And neither of these turnovers were credited to Triple J because of, I guess, whoever was passing it in got credited the turnovers. But Josh was and his defense just continues to be so impressive for this Rockets team. It's what they were missing in that starting lineup, right? The double big is great situationally, and it still works. It's still a great weapon to turn to, but that ball hawk in your face pressure defense that Okogie provides is nothing short of what this Rockets team was absolutely missing defensively. And then offensively, he continues to be better than advertised when they originally got him. He was on fire in the third quarter, scored 11 of his 13 points. At one point had 3 straight triples in the third quarter. Cause at the end of the day, you can treat Josh Okogie as a non-shooter, but if you're just going to disrespect him and leave him wide open, he will burn you from 3 eventually. And he's shooting an obscene, what is he actually even shooting from 3 this season? Hang on. I should actually I should know this off the top of my head, but I don't. Josh Okogie from 3 this season, 52.2%. At some point, teams are going to stop not guarding him at the 3-point line. So at some point, the Rockets spacing will level out. But in the meantime, it's good to see Josh capitalizing on those opportunities pretty consistently. Meanwhile, another sharpshooter for the Rockets, Tari Eason. My goodness. Tari, this is why he didn't sign the contract, because he knew that he was going to come in and suddenly be shooting 60% from three, whatever absurd number he's got going on from three this season so far. 55.9% from three this season. He's shooting like over 60% or something ridiculous from the corners as well. Tari in this one, 16 points, 5 of 13 shooting, 4 of 8 at the 3-point line, only 1 of 5 inside the arc, so struggled with some of those possessions. And there were some wonky possessions, where you drive it in or, settle for like a weird mid-range shot. And Rockets still have some weird stuff to clean up in their offense for sure. And that's the funny thing, is they're still the number one offense in the NBA, and it has looked far from perfect. It's not like the Rockets are rolling the ball out there and everything looks pristine and the passes are clean and they're not turning the ball over. No, there's still a lot of ugly in this offense, and they're still the best offense in the NBA. That's kind of nuts to think about. Tari continues to be an absolute sharpshooter. And there was a moment too where Tari was guarding Triple J and just got his big old like baseball mitt hands in there and stole the ball, got out and was able to run in transition. Some great defensive moments from him in this one as well. And then Clint Capela off the Rockets bench, filling in for Steven Adams. No Steve-O in this game. It was good to have Jabari back in the starting lineup, but no Steve-O in this one, dealing with some hip soreness, I believe. Should be hopefully good to go for the in-season tournament matchup against the Spurs on Friday. But Clint Capela slotting in exactly where you have him in next man up mentality with no Steve-O. 6 points, 10 rebounds, 4 of them on the offensive glass, had a couple assists in there. There was a play where KD found Capela on the short roll to the middle of the floor, and then Capela immediately spun, knew that the defense was collapsing on him, kicked it out to Tari Eason, cans a three-pointer. And that's the important thing, is it's not always going to be Alperen Sengun or Amen Thompson as the recipient from one of those double team passes. It might be Clint Capela, it might be Josh Okogie, it might be Tari Eason, it might be Jabari Smith Jr., right? Everybody needs to be ready to be able to find the next man. And this Rockets team, their ability to pass and share the basketball as a collective unit, right? Again, point guard by committee, playmaking by committee has been a big thing for their offensive success this season. But Clint, very solid in his minutes. And you could tell Ime is trying to juggle and find ways in these lineups to get Clint some more minutes. There's been a very steady uptick of Clint Capela over these last few games. And it's tough when you've got two incredibly talented backup centers in Steven Adams and Clint Capela, who are both arguably talented enough to be starting caliber centers for some of the teams still in the NBA today. It's a total luxury to have like no crazy drop off. Like obviously they're different types of players, but to go from Steven Adams to Clint Capela as your backup, is such a luxury for this team. Last thing that I want to talk about here, the defense, I will say, I didn't get to it last segment, meant to, but just the way that the Rockets were able to contain the Grizzlies, they had them in hell. Ja Morant, 17 points, 6 of 19 shooting, a mix between Josh Okogie and Amen Thompson, just locking him down. 6 turnovers for Ja Morant as well. Probably a couple of those turnovers that were, should have been credited to Triple J, going to Ja Morant instead. Triple J only 9 points on 2 of 6 shooting. Just at times seemed, at times the Grizzlies stars just seemed disinterested. Look, the Grizzlies are a dumpster fire, right? The whole Ja situation, that locker room is probably fractured. It's a mess. Jock Landale might have looked like their best starter, just because he was on fire from 3 and he's been shooting the lights out of the ball from distance, in their starting lineup. But just their bench completely outplayed every single starter. Cam Spencer could not miss. I don't know what the hell Cam Spencer was on. 19 points, 5 of 9 shooting from deep. Every time he put up a 3, I was like, it's in. It's going in. It's happening. And then Santi Aldama continues to be one of the best reserves in the NBA. He's really good. Even though he didn't have one of his usual shooting performances from 3, still put up 16 points on 5 of 12 shooting. He's a really solid guy. But the Rockets defense just did a good job switching, being, pressuring the Grizzlies, forcing turnovers, getting little deflections here and there. And at no point, it really didn't feel like the Grizzlies got much, if anything at all, easy in this game. And that's a far cry from there were, some of these past few games, even on this win streak, where the Rockets have been giving up a lot of easy stuff at the rim in certain moments. And we saw a little bit of zone in this game, but not a ton of it. And it does feel like Ime is making a noticeable shift away from the zone defense. He still uses it situationally here and there. And in particular, they're using it when they have the double big lineup out there, which also directly coincides with the Reed Shepherd minutes. So Ime's been running zone in order to kind of help protect Reed Shepherd defensively a little bit. We'll say much better game from Reed across the board on both sides of the basketball, outside of maybe like one moment offensively where he was dribbling the ball up the floor. Rockets forced a turnover. Reed has the ball in his hands. He's at like half court. And there are two Rockets like under the basket on the other end. And like he just needed to push the ball ahead to get an easy bucket. And instead it was like he dribbled all the way up. And then the Rockets weren't like they weren't able to turn it into a bucket immediately, but then Reed relocated to the corner and the pass came back out to him and he was able to knock down a three. So like it worked out, but like it was just a bad possession because it's like you need to just make that pass ahead and get it to the corner. But he had some good moments in this game. He had some good passes and 12 points, right? 12 points on 5 of 7 shooting. It's kind of the that role where if you're going to be an offense, like Reed's offense needs to justify his ability to be on the court at this point, because he is going to be at times a liability defensively. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. He's a young player. He's inexperienced on defense, and teams target him on defense, right? Like the Grizzlies at various points were trying to hunt and find like that Ja Morant, Reed Shepherd mismatch and trying to get Ja isolated on Reed or get Reed on a switch with another player. And because of that, that's where you lean into the zone defense. That's where you need those help defenders in place. That's where you need guys to be able to help cover for him. But if his offense is going to be like this, then it's fine, because you live with that. Because if he's going to give you 12 points on 5 of 7 shooting off the bench, you love that. That spark that he can provide for you offensively far outweighs any drawbacks that he's going to create on the defensive end when you have so many other very capable defenders to help kind of insulate him on that side of the floor. And the defense is going to continue to get better. Credit to Ime Udoka for giving Reed those opportunities, right? And living with whatever the outcome may be, because he needs those reps to just continue to grow and get better on that side of the basketball. That's all I've got from this game. I want your thoughts from this one. Give me your thoughts in the YouTube comments. How do you feel about the Rockets with their 5th straight win? The offensive structure, Kevin Durant being a very unselfish, willing decoy for the Rockets offense, using his gravity, creating opportunities for everybody else. Give me all your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.